Hellraiser wasn't just another 80s horror movie, it was discipline wrapped in chaos, where desire, ritual, and pain collided in one cursed house. Blood on the walls, candles in the dark, and a puzzle box that promised pleasure but delivered punishment. But behind that nightmare were panicked producers, failed special effects, and a lead actor who almost refused the role that made him a legend. These are 15 weird facts about Hellraiser, and hidden deep inside that film was an uncut version so brutal, the studio banned it before it ever reached theaters. Number 1. The Priest with No Name. In the original novella, The Hellbound Heart, the lead Cenobite wasn't Pinhead and didn't even have a name. Clive Barker described an androgynous creature with smooth skin and a voice that sounded male and female at once. Fans jokingly nicknamed it Pinhead because of the nails. Barker hated the nickname, saying it stripped away dignity and mystery, but it spread through magazines and conventions. The studio eventually leaned in. By Hellraiser III, the credit officially read Pinhead. The funny part is the character became iconic precisely because the public chose the name. Barker preferred Priest or lead Cenobite, yet the joke label stuck, branding the monster for mainstream audiences forever. Number 2. The title that almost killed the movie. The film almost launched with a disastrous name. Barker's book was titled The Hellbound Heart, but executives thought it sounded like a romance novel. The working title that floated during production, Saddam from Beyond the Grave, made cast and crew cringe. It sounded cheap, confusing, and hard to market on posters or TV spots. Producer Christopher Figg suggested Hellraiser, one word, bold, punchy, and easy to remember. That switch instantly clarified the movie's identity and tone. Marketing materials looked stronger, trailers sounded better, and press coverage stopped making jokes about the title. A single naming decision likely saved audience interest before anyone saw a frame. Number 3. The banned alternate ending. For decades, fans have whispered about a lost Hellraiser ending, one so disturbing it was supposedly banned. In this version, Frank Cotton doesn't just die, he transforms into a Cenobite. The rumor came from behind-the-scenes photos showing Frank's mutilated body in new makeup, and from an early draft that hinted at his skin etched with hellish geometry. But Clive Barker shut it down before filming. He said Frank didn't deserve to evolve, but only to suffer. Turning him into a Cenobite, Barker believed, would make him powerful again instead of damned. So the idea was buried, never shot, and the banned alternate ending became legend. Number 4. The actor who almost said no to Pinhead. Doug Bradley nearly passed on the role that defined his career. He worried about spending the entire movie under latex instead of showing his real face. He even asked to play one of the movers so family and friends would recognize him. At the last moment, he chose the Cenobite. The work was tough, heavy prosthetics, black contact lenses that limited vision, and robes that made movement awkward. Long makeup sessions started before dawn and ended after wrap. When filming finished, crew members walked past him without noticing because they'd rarely seen his real face. That decision turned Bradley into horror royalty and shaped the franchise's identity from day one. Number 5. The effects held together by desperation. The team stretched a small budget with handmade solutions. The lament configuration was real wood and brass, fragile enough that its designer crouched off camera to catch it mid-take. The engineer creature constantly broke, forcing resets and creative angles. Doug Bradley's contacts limited sight, and his long robe snagged on set pieces. Weekends became repair shifts, gluing, repainting, and rebuilding. Because everything existed physically, lighting and camera placement could sell texture and weight. Gore gags used pumps, bladders, and tubing rather than optical tricks. The result is a gritty look that still holds up. Audiences sense real materials interacting with light, which keeps moments feeling uncomfortable and grounded instead of cartoony. Number 6. Jesus Wept wasn't in the script. The original script ended with a throwaway taunt. During filming, Andrew Robinson suggested Jesus Wept, which Barker immediately approved. The line's power comes from delivery, quiet, bitter, and fast. It doesn't play like a punchline or big speech. It lands like a final thought before punishment arrives. Because it's short, audiences remember it and repeat it. The improvised change upgraded the climax from loud to chilling. It also demonstrates how actor instincts can transform key beats. One smart substitution created a lasting quote, shaped the scene's tone, and gave the franchise a line fans still reference whenever Pinhead or the Hooks return. Number 7. Censored desire. Censors didn't only target gore, they flagged intimate scenes for excessive intensity. The MPAA used oddly specific guidelines, including a two-thrust rule, where a third motion crossed a line. Barker re-edited to imply heat without explicit movement. Quick cuts, fabric tearing, hands gripping, and suggestive sound. The changes dodged an X rating and kept distribution alive. Ironically, the edits increased tension. Viewers filled gaps with imagination, which often lands harder than clear images. The affair still reads as reckless and destructive, and it fuels Julia's motivations without lingering shots. The result preserved tone, protected release plans, and accidentally made the relationship feel more dangerous. Number 8. The monster who almost became a comedian. Executives pushed Barker to modernize the villain with one-liners, following Freddy Krueger's success. Others suggested making Pinhead silent like Jason. Barker refused both. He said Pinhead is a judge, calm, logical, and terrifying because he doesn't rush or joke. The character's power comes from certainty and ritual, not taunts. Barker protected short, deliberate lines delivered like a verdict. That choice separated Hellraiser from other franchises. Instead of a crowd-pleasing quip machine or a mute stalker, audiences met a monster who debates fate, pain, and rules. The restraint paid off. Number 9. Kirsty's relationship changed from the book. In the novella, Kirsty isn't Larry's daughter. She's an outsider with a quiet crush, which gives events a different emotional angle. The film changed her to Larry's daughter to tighten stakes inside the house. With family blood involved, every betrayal hits harder. Julia protecting Frank becomes a direct attack on home and trust, not just a messy affair. This adjustment also clarifies audience rooting interest. A daughter trying to save her father from a nightmare. The switch streamlined dialogue, raised urgency, and made confrontations cleaner. It's a small adaptation choice that turned a strange romance thread into a family survival story mainstream audiences could connect with immediately. Number 10. Frank's rebirth is pure practical magic. The resurrection sequence used underfloor rigs, syringes, and practical bladders to push fluids and shapes up through boards. Wax and gelatin elements were heated or cooled to change texture, then filmed backward so growth appeared organic. Crews layered shots to show stages, ooze, forming limbs, then a partial body. Lighting hid seams while shiny highlights sold the wet look. Because all movement happened physically, the brain accepts it as real. No CGI shortcuts, just controlled mess. That's why the scene still ranks on practical effects lists. The technique is simple but precise. Time, heat, pressure, pumps, and patience, delivering a disgusting, memorable moment that defines the movie's reputation. Number 11. The score that was replaced in secret. Barker originally hired Coyle to create an industrial electronics soundtrack. Their cues were metallic, droning, and deeply unsettling, matching the story's mechanical rituals. Producers worried mainstream audiences wouldn't accept the experimental sound. Without Barker's approval, they replaced the score with Christopher Young's orchestral approach. Young delivered sweeping, gothic themes that sold the movie as grand, tragic horror rather than underground art. That shift shaped audience expectations immediately. Trailers sounded cinematic. The puzzle box felt mythic instead of purely mechanical. If you listen closely, small traces of Coyle reportedly remain mixed under the final audio. Two musical visions briefly overlap, with Young's symphonic weight steering the film's legacy. Number 12. The movie that nearly got banned. The MPAA initially gave Hellraiser an X rating, which would have killed distribution. Barker trimmed gore and adjusted sensual scenes to lower intensity. Frank's most explicit shots were shortened, and certain inserts disappeared entirely. The goal wasn't to remove shock, but to dodge the label that limited advertising and theatrical screens. Even with changes, the movie still felt extreme for 1987. The cuts actually sharpened pacing and made some moments suggestive instead of explicit, which kept tension high. International boards had their own demands, leading to slightly different versions. The uncut material lived mostly in stories and rumor, feeding the film's dangerous reputation for years. Number 13. From Banned to Beloved. Hellraiser premiered at London's Prince Charles Cinema on September 10, 1987. Made for roughly $1 million, it earned nearly $15 million worldwide and quickly recouped costs. Some regions briefly banned or edited it for excessive brutality, while critics split hard. Roger Ebert dismissed it. British writers praised its ambition. Audiences showed up because it felt different from typical slashers, ritualistic, serious, and rule-driven. Pinhead became an instant convention presence, and the mythos expanded through sequels, comics, and merchandise. Despite obstacles, word of mouth carried it. The film proved a focused vision, and memorable villain can turn a small, risky project into a long-running horror brand. Number 14, a British movie hiding behind an American voice. Hellraiser was shot entirely in London, with the Cotton House located in Cricklewood. Barker wanted a British feel, but the studio worried American audiences might not connect with local slang and accents. Several supporting performances were dubbed with American voices. Production design also avoided obvious British signposts, neutral cars, generic street details, and interiors that could be anywhere. Some executives even floated redubbing Doug Bradley, but Barker refused. Pinhead's measured, judicial tone depended on that original performance. Keeping Bradley's voice preserved the character's authority and rhythm. The final result feels oddly placeless on purpose, which helped the film travel internationally without viewers getting stuck on geography instead of the story. Number 15, Claire Higgins couldn't watch. Claire Higgins, who plays Julia, isn't a horror fan and reportedly left the premiere early because the intensity bothered her. Fans find that surprising because she's icy and controlled on screen, selling manipulation and guilt without camp. Her discomfort mirrors the movie's goal. Hellraiser isn't playful, it's stressful. That tone separates it from crowd-pleasing 80s slashers. Higgins grounds the story in bad decisions rather than cartoon evil, which makes the violence feel closer. You don't have to like horror to play it well, you just have to commit to truthful behavior. Her performance keeps the human drama sharp while the supernatural escalates around it. Hellraiser remains one of the few horror films that feels like a warning. It's not just about pain or punishment, it's about obsession, curiosity, and the human need to touch what we shouldn't. The film's flaws, its dubbing, its clunky props, its tight budget somehow make it feel even more real. Clive Barker turned limits into atmosphere and discipline into terror. Decades later, that small film still stands beside giants like A Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. Not because it copied them, but because it refused to. It built its own rules, elegant, cruel, and unforgettable. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hellraiser, make sure to hit like, drop a comment with your favorite fact, and subscribe for more dark secrets from classic horror.